What's going on, guys? Welcome to another tutorial brought to you by the Minecrafters. I'm Captain Jack, and in this video we are going to be automating fusion crafting from Draconic Evolution. Alright, so fusion crafting is not easy to automate, and it's just because of how it's set up, how the injectors work, how the core works. So it's extremely difficult. I'm actually going to say that it's almost not worth doing this. But it was a really fun project to work on. You can see that it's making me a chaos core in the background there. But before we jump into exactly how this machine is working, I just want to kind of lay out what the problems are that basically prevent you from automating this thing easily. All right, don't get intimidated by this. It's not that complicated. I just want to kind of illustrate to you three of the reasons why this is difficult to do. So first of all, if you happen to have a recipe whose core item is also used in another recipe as an injector item, it becomes extremely tedious. So you can't just basically dump everything from an interface into a chest and have it pump out round robin, because you're going to run into a problem if you have multiple recipes that let's say the Wyvern core for the energy injector recipe is going to end up in the outside in one of the injectors and not actually in the core. And this is true for a few different recipes, and the basic workaround for this is two different interfaces going into two different chests, and depending on which item is in the core, you're going to have to pick and choose which one of the interfaces you're going to send your recipes to. And again, we'll see that in a second. Okay, so one of the other huge things that you have to work out when you're trying to automate this is being able to craft multiple recipes simultaneously without clogging the system, which again, if you've tried this, you'll find out right away that it is not as easy as you might seem. The solution is not Ender IO item conduits plus a bunch of filters, and you can't just filter each fusion injector with whatever you want in it, because it ends up not working. Because let's say this recipe for awaken cores uses 5 different awaken ingots, but the recipe for this uses 4. So you end up running into a problem where if you wanted to make multiple chaos cores and you were just using item conduits, you wouldn't be able to, because it would start throwing the draconium, the awakened draconium, into the wrong fusion injector, and the balance of the recipe just wouldn't work out. So this makes the multiple crafting operations difficult, and basically we're going to solve this with blocking mode, and I'll explain that in a second, and then a dummy item. Alright, the last reason why this is so difficult is because the sheer number of recipes that you would have to program, if you could even figure out a way to program them, which is a completely different story, it is just not worth it. So for each one of these pieces of armor and weapons, you can apply different upgrade keys. So let's take the helms. For each of the 2 helms, you can apply an upgrade key for RF capacity. So for the Wyvern, you can apply only 2 tiers because it's limited, because it's a Wyvern. And for the Draconic helm, you can apply 4 tiers all the way up to chaotic. So this makes 35 different available options for recipes for Wyvern, and then 37 different recipes for the Draconic, and that's because the Draconic hoe and the Draconic staff of power are unique to the Draconic line. So all the green represents the upgrade that you can put on the various things. So bows, all the reds, you can't attach, arrow stuff to anything except for the bow. So you get our 2 bows here, and you can attach 3 different upgrades there. The problem with programming all these recipes is twofold. First, you can't program AE to create, quote unquote, let's say a tier 1 or tier 2 Draconic helm, or program it to RF capacity tier 1, because you can't program the output to something that you're inputting. So you can't say you can include the helmet in the recipe and also have the helmet be the output. So that just doesn't work. You may be able to make this work by faking it. So if you've watched my QED automation for AE2, the way to work around the system clogging is basically you make a fake item, but this is just impossible. There's no actual way that this makes any sense to fully automate this. So The machine is not quote unquote fully automated, but it's as close to automated as you can possibly get within reason, because this is just too much. All right, so this is going to get really technical and it might get really tedious for some people, but I know some of you guys are going to be curious how I made this happen. So let's go ahead and start this. First of all, you can see that I have all these different recipes in here. And basically these are all of the programmable recipes for the mod pack that I'm using right now, which is FTB Revelations. Some mod packs require you to use fusion crafting to make like the Weirvin cores and stuff like that, but since this is not in here, I basically automated every different recipe from Draconic Evolution, again minus the upgrade keys, and let's go ahead and see how this works. Alright, so let's look at the recipes first. We're using Applied Energistics 2, and all of my recipes basically look like this. So if we're gonna make an awakened core, the recipe is 5 awakened draconium, 4 Weirvin cores, and another star goes in the crafting core here. So my recipes have all the ingredients plus a piece of cobblestone. Now, why do I have cobblestone? So if I go ahead and try to make 2 awakened cores, normally what would happen is it's going to take all 10 of these, all 8 of these, the 2 cobble, and the 2 nether stars. It's going to take them all and jam them right in that chest. But it's not going to do that because I have the cobblestone. Now, what does the cobblestone do? Once the ME interface throws everything inside of here, it thinks the cobblestone is part of the crafting recipe. And because of the way I have the interface set up, it's not going to put the next set of ingredients in there, which you can see happening there, until the cobblestone has been removed. Now, how does it know to do that? I'm using an ME interface with blocking mode on. So this says, do not push crafting items if the inventory contains items. So the cobblestone makes it so that this rig can craft multiple recipes, one after another, without gumming up all of the injectors. So real quick again, the patterns all contain a cobblestone. All of the items are going to go into the chest. All of the items necessary for the craft are going to get sucked out of the chest, but the piece of cobblestone is going to remain. Now, we're going to go over how the cobblestone gets out in a second, but I just want to do this bit by bit so you guys absolutely understand what's going on here. So the cobblestone makes it so I can craft multiple recipes. Alright, so what happens once the items get into the chest? 2 things are happening. I have an extract on cyan, and I have an extract on yellow. The extract from the top on cyan has an item filter in it. That is taking out all of the items that are going to go into the crafting core, bringing them out through cyan, going through the network up here, and being extracted into the fusion crafting core. And it may be a little bit redundant, that's not necessary, but this is all of these items, again whitelisted here, to only go into the fusion crafting core. Now on the yellow network, I basically blacklisted everything that would be sucked out the top. So anything that is not these items is going to get sucked out of the yellow network, or the yellow filter, and that is going to get pumped into a storage scanner. Now, what is a storage scanner? This is not an RF Tools tutorial, but I'm just going to show you how this works. The storage scanner needs power. You can select an area. It's going to scan in a 4-block radius. Once you hit scan, everything in that 4-block radius is going to appear in here. So I have 3 different injectors and I have a chest. So 1, 2, 3, 4 different items. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take anything that is not a fusion crafting injector and remove it. So highlight it, hit R, now it is gone. Now you want to star all of the routable fusion crafting injectors on here and make sure there are no other items on this except for fusion crafting injectors. Now, the other thing that you want to do is, you see how it says single item mode inactive on the bottom right hand side of my screen? You have to do single item mode active or else this is not going to work. And if you forget to do it with one of them, you'll find out real quick what the problem is. So the basic idea here is that if I put anything into the storage scanner, it's going to put them in these spaces here. And because I have single item mode active, only one item can go into each of them. So it doesn't necessarily matter to me which injector they get into, as long as they all make it into an injector. So if I have, let's take two. If I have two awakened draconiums and I just put them inside of there, they're going to appear in a random set of those. And if I put another one in there, it's going to go to a third one. So that's how I'm using my injectors here without any conduits or anything attached to them. All right, so let's talk about the dual interface system here. I think I only needed it for the injector here, but the reason why I have this separate from this one is because the energy injector takes one Weirvin core and puts it in the center core block instead of the injectors. So if I had this recipe set up on this same interface with my item filters pulling out just the way they are, what would happen was the Weirvin core would never actually make it into the crafting thing. It would be put into here because of the way I have my whitelist and blacklist set up. So for this one, I have a Weirvin core coming out the top on cyan, which we already discussed is going into the crafting core, and then everything else is getting sucked out on yellow and going directly into the storage scanner. So that's the reason why I had to have two separate interfaces in order to fully automate all the recipes. So now what happens once the craft is finished? Okay, here we go. This is the tedious part. So I have on orange everything being extracted out of the fusion core, and I have no items filtered here. I'm just extracting, always active. Remember to provide your crafting core with some sort of redstone signal to make the craft start. I don't care how you do it. I'm just using a clock here. So when the craft is finished on the orange network, I'm extracting, always active, and going into a skystone block chest, doesn't matter what kind of chest it is, and on that chest I have a redstone comparator, and the basic function of the comparator is to sense if there is something inside the chest. So what happens here? I have a couple whitelists. Inside of this chest over here, I have all of these crafting ingredients, and those pertain to this interface over here. So the whitelist for this chest needs to be the same as the whitelist for this chest interface setup over here, and the same thing holds true for this one. So my whitelist here is just these two items, because I want anything that's crafted using this interface, I want them to go into this chest right here, and anything crafted with this interface over here need to be output into this chest. Now, once the items go into this chest, they get extracted on the magenta network pretty much right away. And the reason why I have that happening is so that I can set off a redstone signal from the comparator and I can send it somewhere else. Once it's been sucked out of the magenta network, it's going to be extracted down here with no filters, priority 1, and the item gets back into my system. So the craft is done, the final product gets back into the system. Now, how does it know when to start the next craft? All right, so these two comparators back here are each set up to emit a redstone signal to two separate channels. This one is set to emit, so input signal color orange, and the signal is going to go through my redstone conduit network into this RF tools control processor. So again, when the craft is finished, the item gets put into the appropriate chest with whitelisted item filters. Once it goes into the chest, the comparator recognizes an item is in there and emits a redstone signal and sends it down there. That's on the orange channel. This one is sending a magenta signal through the same network over here to this processor, and I have the lamp on here just to make it easy to distinguish which one is which. Alright, so I apologize if I lose some of the audience here, but this was the most effective way that I could figure out, and believe me, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to let it know when the craft was done so that it could pull the piece of cobblestone back out of the chest into the system to enable it to start a new craft because of this blocking mode here. I tried thermal expansion item ducts with servos and retrievers. It just was too hit or miss. I tried Ender IO conduits. It was too hit or miss. Basically, if I tried to craft 10 items, it would get anywhere between 3 and 9 of them done, and the system would clog. The redstone signal wasn't effective. The RF Tools Controls Processor was the most effective way that I could basically take the piece of cobblestone out of the chest and put it back into the system. So this is what the processors are for. Once the craft is done, the redstone signal is going to activate the processor, provide it with the redstone signal, and execute the program that I have in here. And the program is just checking this chest for a piece of cobblestone. If it finds a piece of cobblestone in there, it's pulling it out from the chest into the processor, into slot 0, and immediately ejecting it on the downside into this interface so that the next craft can start. Alright, so the program I'm using is extremely basic, and I am not going to do a tutorial on this. If you want to know about this mod, go look up somebody else's tutorial. But basically the idea is you drag certain operations onto here, whatever you want, you line them up in an order, and this the processor will execute your program. So basically I have a super simple program here, okay? This is not my forte. So I'm getting a redstone signal. So on redstone, which the redstone signal is coming out of the comparators, when that happens, it's going to check the south side. So on both of these examples, south is this way. So it's checking the south chest right here for a piece of cobblestone right here. And if it finds a piece of cobblestone, it's going to fetch it, and then it's going to push it. So it's going to fetch on the south side, slot 0. Actually, that can be just any slot. And then it's going to push items on the downside, and it's going to push just one cobblestone. So when it gets a redstone signal, it's executing this. It's taking one piece of cobblestone out of the chest, going into here, and you got to make sure you enable your slot up top here. You don't need RAM. Once you do that, once that's done, it comes down to here, and then the next craft can start. And that's what the processors are doing. All right, so I'm going to risk being a little bit repetitive here, but I want to apologize for it because this is a little bit complicated, and I just want to run over again real quickly what's going on here. When we want to make a chaotic core, we need to have 4 awakened cores, which also is a fusion crafting process. So we need to make sure that our system does one recipe at a time, so multiple recipes items don't get jammed into the injectors. And let's go ahead real quick and watch how this works again. So my items are initially going to get put in this chest, and you can see that that one ingot got pulled out just at the last second. With every crafting recipe, I'm inserting a piece of cobblestone. Once the craft is done, the items go into this chest, the comparator lights up, sends a redstone signal to the lamp, pulls the piece of cobblestone out, which allows for the new recipe to go back into it thanks to blocking mode on the ME interface. So once the redstone signal is received by the appropriate chest, in this case, everything's going into this chest and being sucked out pretty quickly. We'll see that in just 1 second. There it is. The awakened core is getting dragged out. The orange signal is getting sent to this processor right here, which is executing the program. The program is looking for a piece of cobblestone in the chest to the right, and if it finds it, it's taking it out and pushing it down to the interface, making the system know that the craft is complete, and the ME interface can put another recipe inside the chest and start it all over again. One quick note, in case you're wondering where my power is coming from, I'm using the Draconic Evolution wireless energy relay crystals, and if I equip my crystal binder here, you'll notice that this is a really convenient form or way to power all of the machines in this. So that's how my storage scanner is getting power, that's how my processors are getting power, and that's how all of my injectors are getting power. So you can see this is super convenient to do. All right, so hopefully you guys are all still with me. If you're not, you might drop off the wagon here. So let's go. Towards the end of this, I admittedly got a little bit lazy, but it was because automating this is debatable on whether or not it's actually worth it because of the sheer amount of recipes. So my solution to this is as follows. I have a chest, and it's got all of the different components that all of these different upgrade keys are going to use. Now, I could have made an ME supplier system for the majority of this. So I would have level emitters set to keep, 2 golden apples, 2 diamonds, 2 emeralds at all times inside of my chest. However, you run into a problem with the Awaken and Chaotic cores, keeping them stocked, because if you're using a supplier level emitter system and you request a craft of one of these tiers and it drops below the threshold from your level emitter, so let's say I have one Awaken core in there at all times. If I use the Awaken core for my upgrade, it's going to automatically prompt a craft of a new Awaken core at the same time as I'm trying to use an upgrade. So you can use a level emitter system for everything in here except for these two. And I just wanted to let people know that, because that would be a lot of level emitters. And I had it mostly set up, but I ripped it down because it was ugly. So if you want to do that, feel free. If you have a better way of storing all the necessary components for all of your upgrade keys, please drop a comment below and let me know what it is. This whole bit is just really complicated to do. So let me show you how this works. I have an interface. I have a terminal here, and I have a piece of quartz fiber right here, which is taking energy from my main network, but not transferring the channels or storage capacity to anything else. So this is a completely separate subnetwork of all of this stuff here. The subnetwork basically consists of one ME terminal and two interfaces. One of the interfaces is attached to a fusion injector here, and the other one is attached to the fusion crafting core here. Now, when you set up your storage scanner, you have to make sure that these two or that this crafting interface is not a valid input for here. So it's not a routable item on here. And also, just by the way, this is sitting over here because some of the recipes require 10 items. So this is, it's throwing it in there too. But anyways, this is that network that I'm using to craft all my upgrade kits. So on this one here, I have all of my different items. So everything, I missed the capacitors, but whatever. All of my different weapons, items, and stuff are going to be automatically stored here. And here is all my upgrade keys. So anything that's an upgrade key is going to be stored in here. And again, make sure single item mode is active. So what happens is when I put in my Draconic chest piece right here, it's going to automatically go inside of here because this interface is set up to make sure all of those things go in there. Actually, it's not an interface. I'm sorry. These are storage buses. Storage buses. Make a note of that one. Sorry, I misspoke earlier. Next, I'm going to take my upgrade key. So whatever I want to upgrade with, I'm going to also put inside of this ME terminal. And as you guessed, by default, it's going to go into the only other place that a storage bus is attached to and will accept any of these upgrade kits. So that is how I'm getting my upgrade key and my item that I want to upgrade into the system. Once I do that, now I pick my tier. So that's not upgraded at all. So I'm going to hit tier 1. And you can see that automatically crafts. All right, so this is going to change from 16 to 64. I pull this out. I can leave that in if I want. I can put that back in there. I can hit tier 2. Now I can go to the next tier, and it will craft this up. Bam. All right, so I'm using a processor again. And this is a little bit more complicated, but it's still not a huge deal. So what this looks like, if I look at my processor setup here, I have 4 different programs. Crappy CPU, don't need anything else. For each of my programs, I have slots allotted. So I have 4 slots for each program. And basically, these programs are looking for items in my item storage chest that's storing all the components needed for the upgrade. It's looking for those items, and it's pulling them into the processor. So let me show you how this program looks. All right, so if I take my program card, I'm going to use tier 4 as an example out and put it back inside of here. This is what it looks like. I'm using an event signal, and that's basically going to be able to let me use an RF tool screen, which are really cool. So this is going to execute a program when a signal is received from an RF tool screen. So what's this? Signal 4. Single, this is just empty. So signal 4. I have this set up with my creative screen here, and when it receives signal 4, it's going to activate the chaotic button. So these are all, this is signal 1, signal 2, signal 3, and signal 4. So for this program, when it does signal 4, it's going to grab these 4 items. So what are the 4? it's going to look again on the south side. So it's basically set up the same as these. So it's just searching the inventory on the south side, which is that way. It's searching the inventory for the following items. 1 dragon egg, or 2 dragon eggs, I'm sorry. So I'm specifying the slot south, the inventory south. I'm leaving the slot blank because I don't care about that. I'm looking for a dragon egg, and the amount I'm looking for is 2. And then that is going to put that out into slot 0 of the processor. Slot 0 is right here. Okay, so it's looking for it from the inventory and bringing it into slot 0. The next item, again, is looking for it in the south inventory. It's grabbing 2 awakened cores. So awakened core, quantity 2, and it's putting into slot 1. And everything needs its own slot. So slot 0 was the dragon egg. Slot 1 is for the awakened cores. Next, I have, again, searching south side for Wyvern cores. We're looking for 2 of those, and they're going in slot 2. And then the last thing is we're searching for 1 chaotic core, and that's going into slot 3. So that's how the program works. Once it's done, you save it onto a program card, move it inside of here, make sure you click this up here and assign it a spot inside the processor, and that is how I am getting my items from this chest into here and pumping them on the yellow signal. So I'm extracting on yellow just like the other 2, and those are being dumped, directly into the storage scanner. So it doesn't matter what order they come out of here. I don't need any round robin junk happening. I'm just pulling everything out of the processor right away and putting it into the storage scanner, and I'm putting in the item I want to upgrade along with the key inside my interface, and I'm just hitting craft, and that's going to upgrade my item. And when it's done, I can pull it. Ooh, it already had that recipe. When it's done, I just pull it right out of here, pull this out of here, and keep going and put whatever armor pieces and do whatever upgrades I want. All right, so one more time just to make sure we're completely clear on how this works. I'm going to take the item I want to upgrade along with the key that I want to put in there. I have the storage bushes whitelist properly so that my legs go into there, and my shield upgrade goes into there. I select my tier. You need to make sure that you do these in order, so you can't skip tier 2 and go to tier 3, and you can't skip tier 1. So this is programming this into tier 1. It's pulling the programmer, or the processor is pulling my items, whatever I pick, out of this chest and into here. And real quickly again, each of these interaction screen modules is activated from a different signal. So tier 1 is signal 1, tier 2 is signal 2, and so on and so forth. And if we look in here, the event signal inside the programmer needs to match the button inside your RF tool screen. So when this is done, I can pull this back out, or I can put it back in and just do tier 2. It's going to use everything that's necessary for tier 2. It's going to craft it up. And that is how you solve the problem of upgrading all of these things without having to do different recipes. And that's it. This is probably the most complicated tutorial that I've ever put out or had to build before. The nature of fusion crafting makes it extremely difficult to automate it easily, and you're forced to really think outside the box, which is why I ended up delving into RF tools control to make this happen. If you guys have other designs or have found a simpler way to make this work or make it work better than I have, I would love to see the link to the video if you can just drop it in the description below. But that's it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you give it a thumbs up, even if you didn't like the video, for the amount of time that I put into it. And that's it. Check out our tutorials for Draconic Evolution down the bottom, and there'll be one for fusion crafting as well, because that wasn't covered in the older videos. And that's it for this video, guys. Captain Jack out. Stay poised.